Here is the group policy management console, and if we right-click a group policy and hit edit, we are live. We're definitely making a live edit here, which can obviously be a little dangerous. And a lot of organizations will try to kind of put some policy restrictions around editing these things live just so they don't trash their environment by mistake, but it can be difficult. Change control, well, if you are disciplined enough to remember to back this thing up every single time you go in to edit it, then you've always got that backup to roll back to. So if you do trash your environment, then there's a way to kind of get yourself back out of it. But it is something that requires discipline. You've got to specifically remember to do that. And we do have good support for resultant set of policy. We can pop up the group policy results wizard. We can test for any computer in the environment. We'll just do this one. We can display the policy settings for any user in the environment. So you can kind of do neat little testing with resultant set of policy. Depending on how many policies have to apply, it might take it a while to run, but the result is this report, which is very similar to the tree breakdown that you would see in the group policy editor, but it's obviously a read-only thing, and you can flip through here and see exactly which settings are being applied and so forth. So that's over here. We can go down and look at every single individual setting and see what the resultant set of policy was. You can also do modeling, which is a little bit more flexible. You can actually say, we're going to use this particular domain controller, we're going to pretend that the user is in this container and that the computer is in this container and so forth, and sort of put together a what-if situation, but you're not going to be able to kind of compare that to the user's real situation. It's kind of one of the big things missing from the group policy management console is any kind of comparison capability, and that would be tremendously useful in a lot of different situations, not to mention having some kind of offline editing. Now, speaking of offline editing, I'm actually working in a virtual machine. This was created by using a P2V, a physical to virtual conversion of a real domain controller in my environment. So this is representative of my production environment. It is configured exactly the way my production domain controller is, and I have the virtual machine configured as an isolated network. In other words, it's not participating in the rest of my network. It doesn't really know that the rest of my network exists. That does upset it occasionally because it does try to replicate with other domain controllers that don't exist in this virtual environment, but it's kind of the price I pay. When it gets too upset and non-functional, I just have to sort of recreate the virtual machine from the physical one. But it does give me that kind of offline environment. It means I can come over here and I can edit a group policy, and I don't have to worry about having it affect the production environment right away. Of course, the problem is getting that over to production can be difficult. Usually what I'll do is just keep track of what settings I've changed. So as I drill down here and change settings, I'll kind of write it down to the side. And then if everything works okay after I've done my modeling and testing, I'll go duplicate those same changes back in production. And it can be kind of a hassle. If I've got a bunch of changes, sometimes doing a backup restore trick is a little bit easier. Back it up in the virtual environment and restore it to production. But there's definitely a lot of room for error. And I've transposed things occasionally when I was moving them over to the production environment and trashed the environment anyway. But this is the tool set we've got. You certainly can put better management practices in place with it if you take the time to do so, and if you have a little bit of discipline to follow to make sure that you're keeping with those practices.